The Ministry of Labour, Industrial Relations and Employment Creation, in collaboration with the International Labour Organization, marked a significant milestone last week Tuesday with the launch of the National Coordination Mechanism, that is NNC, on decent work in the Namibian Fisheries Sector. Now, to share more on the launch and its significance, we are now joined, that is, by the Acting Executive Director in the Ministry of Labour, Industrial Relations and Employment Creation, Aune Mudjanima. Good evening and welcome to the Daily Roundup.
Good evening and thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's get straight into it. Maybe just talk to us about the details and objectives, that is, about the specific goals that when it comes to the national coordination as well as decent work in the Namibia fisheries sector.
Thank you very much. The National Coordination Mechanism, we call it in short NCM, on decent work in the Namibian Fisheries Sector, it's formulated as a result of nomination from the tripartite. When we speak of the tripartite, we speak of the government, the employee and employer representatives. So the goal is really to ensure that Namibia, being a member state of ILO, which is the International Labour Organization, is in compliance, effectively and collectively reporting on the implementation of Convention 188, which is work in fishing, and as well as to really just continue fostering decent work in the fishery sector. While the main objective is to support and coordinate then the full implementation of Convention 188, as well as other international labor standard and national labor legislations within the fishery sector. So those are really the two goals and objectives of the NCM.
All right. Now, if you just talk to us about the specific challenges that are actually faced by the workers in the Namibia fisheries industry.
So when you speak of decent work, we refer to the employment that is productive, the employment that is profitable, and the employment that provide a fair wage. At the same time, it's also providing safe working environment, social protections, and better prospect or opportunity for anyone and personal growth of those employees and advancement. So now, this really that I have specified above serves really as some of the different challenges that faced by our people within the fishery sector. Some of them, it's either the wage, some of them is either the safe working environment, or really best prospect of opportunities for personal growth. Now, having then the NCM being appointed, and it's a collective and tripartite body, will then be able to make sure that all other issues and challenges are collected, really analyzed and submitted so that they can be able, and programs and activities will be put in place to make sure that we address them. We know it is a known factor that the outcome of the three working together will always be beneficial for both employees, because their condition of services will be improved for the employer, because when you have a happy employees, then you will receive productivity at the end of the day. And also it helps them then promote sustainable development and growth in our economy.
All right. You spoke about programs and activities being put in place. What strategies are perhaps being considered, that is to ensure the effective enforcement of conviction, that is number 188, I believe, and other international labor standards within the fisheries industry?
The NMC has been constituted with the main functions. The function that are meant to ensure effective enforcement of the convention and other labor legislation. So these functions would be to support and coordinate the full implementations, as I have indicated before, through then constant, effective and robust social dialogue. You need to speak to the people and the players in the sector for you to be able to understand really and be able to come up with issues that are addressing their needs. So then that will enable them to analyze and identify gaps and be able to then consult, make recommendation, and be able to advise the responsible ministries and organizations and private sectors and private players that are involved on the best ways to address this and how to promote decent work. At the same time, then continuously review and monitor and evaluate the process on how both constituents are implementing what has been put forth to implement in a drive to make sure that decent work is realized in our fishery sector.
Now, talking about the stakeholders, how often will the NMC actually engage with the stakeholders that you just mentioned now, including that is the workers' organization and employees federations, that is to ensure their voices are actually heard when it comes to decision making?
When I at the beginning indicated really that the NMC it's constitute of tripartite, and that already it's an indication that these stakeholders are consulted, constantly. And this constitution is an unequal number, same number of government employer and employee representative. In the same vein, the NMC will be required, Namibia will be required to report as a member state of ILO to indicate their compliance, and that reporting will then require collective reports from all constituents. And that means then NMC is also required to report to the Ministry of Labour, being the competent authorities in the implementation of Convention 188. So in that way then consultation has to happen, because you need to know what has been done by all constituents so that you can be able to compile a collective report that address what is required to address. So reporting annually or quarterly as placed on the responsibility of them or as need arise will then be implemented and required. And that will then promote engagement, because coming already to attend to meetings, you cannot come without the mandate of your constituents. And you cannot make any decisions if you doesn't have that mandate from your constituent to do it, or any other contribution. That means the consultation really of the stakeholders, it's constant. Yeah.
Now, are there any plans to monitor and evaluate the impact of the NMC's initiatives on improving decent work conditions in the fisheries sector over time? If so, just kindly maybe just talk to us about those plans that are in place.
When you have constituted a body, it's important, very cardinal, that they put up a working plan. So that you can be able to monitor the implementation of the activity, and it will also enable them to really see if they are implementing and meeting what is expected of them. So now as I have indicated, the reporting will then enable effective and collective reporting of everyone else, including NCM, and it's expected that they will then be able to implement their activity. It only then, when you also have a plan that you report in, you will be able to be allocated resources that will enable you to carry out your activity. So monitoring and evaluation, again, I emphasize, and reporting will then be able to make sure that monitoring it's implemented in the process, and the NCM will then be accountable for what they are appointed for and report to the Minister of Labour.
Now, what are the long-term goals that the Ministry of Labour actually aims to achieve through this establishment of the NCM, and how will success actually be measured looking at the future or years to come?
The mandate of the Ministry of Labour, Industrial Relations and Employment Creation is to ensure harmonious labour relation. And to do that, you really need an effective and you need to foster effective labor relations, which is aiming at promoting productive work environment, at the same time while ensuring the fair treatment of the employee, equitable compensation for those employees because they are trading their services for remuneration, and also to make sure that protection of both workers and the employer's right is exercised. And you can only really achieve that once both players in the industry are collectively and effectively engaging. Only when they are talking to one another, when they are communicating in an environment that is conducive, that they will be able to really plan and implement programs that affect them. So I always say building a strong bond in a sector eliminates hostility. And we have observed as Ministry of Labour that when the environment is conducive between the two, then it improves the level of negotiation, the level of collective bargaining, and also resolve dispute, and also make it easy for us who are to enforce the law and make sure compliance is there when there is no hostility and the whole sector is working together. Believe me, the bond will create the leverage field also for anybody, be it a worker, be it an employer, to play in. At the same time, enable a positive attainment then of the objective of NCM goal and an objective. So for us then, being the Ministry of Labour, we know you cannot do that alone. You can never achieve it alone in the labour fraternity. And at the same time, because we value our social partners, which is employer and employee representatives, we therefore very much know that it's important to collectively hold hands together as a tripartite in a boat really to realize decent work and the dignity of our Namibian people and everyone else who is working within the border of Namibia. So really that will then enable the ministry to make sure that the NCM's objectives, their functions are carried out, and success will be met at the end of the day. So I should also mention that the current NCM is appointed for 5 years, and then activities will then be set for 5 years and reviewed every annually and quarterly, of course, to make sure that we are on track, and at the end of the day build a foundation in a sector that our Namibian people will be happy to work in, and really can be able at the end of the day to say we have done justice to our mandate.
Ms. Aune, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence here on Daily Roundup.
Thank you very much.
All right. And now that was Acting Executive Director in the Ministry of Labour, Industrial Relations and Employment Creation, Ms. Aune Mudjanima, just talking to us about the launch of the National Coordination Mechanism, also known as NCM, that is on decent work in the Namibian Fisheries Sector. Do stay with us. This is Daily Roundup.